Do you see how it's boiling and how beautifully the wax is melting? Look at it.
You might need to add a little more water. It's starting to melt. And now, this needs to go directly to be filtered. Nothing is falling out of the boiler, right?
It's already draining. We lift the sack up.
Now, the process is to start pressing. This is the system. You can't let it cool down. The result of all this work is this. In 2 or 3 days, I'll take it out of the boiler, and it'll be completely solid like you see here now, hard and ready to be preserved for life. I need to grab another comb to see how much honey it has. Do you see that? That means it doesn't have much honey. It can't be harvested further. So from there down, it doesn't have any honey, only brood, if there is any. Otherwise, there's only dried up honey. That's the thing. We have to open another hive. Normally, they are filled up to here, but these past years have been so bad, they don't produce much of anything wax honey. That's how I know the hive isn't very strong. Teodoro trusts the kindness of his bees and is going to open or check another hive without using the protective mask. Look how elegant, how beautiful it is. Look at the stinger. Do you see it? She dies. But this is the one that stung me, and it's causing the sting. If you don't make a big deal out of it, nothing happens. People who get scared and start swatting and screaming, that's very bad for the bees and everything. This should have been at least up to here with honey. The rest is just wax. So, if I see in the center that they haven't filled it with honey, it means they only have what's visible, a bit more. So you have to be very careful when inspecting them, because if you push it a bit too far, you'll kill the hive. Understood? Look at this. How delicious. Now in winter, they all huddle into a ball to protect themselves from the cold. However, honey is very cold. It chills them. If this hive were full of honey to the bottom and I didn't take any out, the bees would freeze in the cells while eating because they can't withstand the temperatures that drop to 20-something degrees below zero here in winter sometimes. Look, another bad situation. These are larvae because maybe the wax below isn't to their liking because for some reason it's dark. Do you understand? So I'm not going to take this. Later I'll put it back in the hive. I have to cover myself because the bees got a bit angry. Sometimes you can work peacefully, and they don't bother you at all, but these ones got angry. One of the empty hives will allow us to see its interior, while Teodoro explains how swarming is done in the spring. This one fits better. The bee, upon hearing noises, eats, but then leaves.
Venid, venid de una en una, dos en dos, hijas de Dios. Hijas de Dios, hijas de Abel, dejad la miel. Hijas de Isaac, tener en paz. De una en una, dos en dos, hijas de Dios. Venid, 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 venid.
And if I want to move it to another apiary, as soon as I take it from there, we had to come up with this. Look, they've fallen there already. Don't throw away that white wax. Nowadays, almost all hod hives are abandoned. A tour around the apiary will give us an idea of the importance of honey and wax in Monasterio de la Sierra until a few decades ago. Teodoro and Victoria have taken the combs home to separate the two products made by the bees, honey and wax. The process of breaking it down begins. I do this to avoid heating it, so there's no pollen, so there are no bees in the honey, because here, even if there are bees, they don't go through the honey. The little honey that remains, we let it fall into the filter. So, when I come back in a few days, this barrel will be almost clean. When the honey melts, it warms up a little, And now I use my hands to remove the wax bee by. All the wax I can get so that there's less left, because then it's easier for me to filter it later. Now I take the wax and press it, and I extract almost 100% of the honey it contains. Another thing, if this ball makes a sound when I throw it onto the table, it's well pressed. But if it has a lot of honey and is not well pressed, it won't make a sound, of course, so pressing it helps. Now I leave it for just a few minutes, and then we continue with the distillation process.
We make in larger quantities. This is very little.
Well, it's a demonstration.
This is the process.
Look, do you see how it's dripping now? That's because it's warm. If it's cold, it won't pass.
It takes a bit of effort.
It takes a lot of work for me. But since we warmed it up a bit, as we've always done, this honey is a bit finicky. Do you see how well it filters? You can see how thick the filter is. There's no wax at all. This is a special filter. The little that remains is wax.
This is the wax that, after extracting the honey, is put here and then washed to get the wax. This is the process of filling the jars. So I have to do it like this. Look, this is how it's done.
Yes, because this honey is more liquid due to being warmed, but the one that is filtered like that one becomes much thicker, more viscous. It's for family consumption. Since I have many children, I have to give them all jars of honey, so I don't need to sell it. Therefore, I want to produce good quality honey since I do the whole process myself, and the ones who will consume it are the family, my children. We have washed the wax after extracting the honey, and now we are going to boil it to remove all the impurities and leave the pure wax.
Do you see how it's boiling and how beautifully the wax is melting? Look at it.
You might need to add a little more water. It's starting to melt. Look how it's starting to melt. Do you see how the wax is starting to melt? It cools very quickly, if you notice. It melts because it comes out boiling from below. But as soon as it reaches the top, you see it immediately cools. And now, this needs to go directly to be filtered. Nothing is falling out of the boiler, right?
It's already draining. We lift the sack up.
Retorcer un poco ese saco. Mira, ¿ves? Ese era el sistema. Este es el sistema. No hay que dejarlo enfriar.
Can't you bring the paddles a bit? Yes, just a little. Come on, the sack.
Upwards.
Yes. All right. Do you see how it filters? And now this has to be left for about 24 hours or so to cool. And the wax is completely separated from the water. Then you take out the wax part. You clean some impurities that usually remain at the bottom, since there are never any at the top.
El resultado de todos esos trabajos es este. Dentro de 2 o 3 días lo saco de la caldera y está totalmente helado, como se ve aquí ahora, duro, y ya para conservarle para toda la vida.
Nowadays, almost all the hod hives that are found on the rocky areas of Monasterio de la Sierra have become a memory of the past. Only Teodoro and Victoria, within their limitations, keep the tradition of producing honey and wax alive, just as they learned from their ancestors.